P had agreed was that any costs that are verifiable in terms of, yes, they have done an EIA, we know the cost of doing an EIA, those costs can easily be reimbursed back to the proponent. So those are the two areas that we have. The reimbursement part of it is per the clauses and the Act. And the Act also gives a maximum cap, and vis-a-vis in terms of arguing for a point of not paying. And the quickest investor to come on board definitely is local financing from Kenya. 27 billion, whether we're talking about insurance companies, we're talking about pension schemes, SACCOs, to come together, form a joint venture, whatever kind of system, then they come and finance that. That becomes the quickest. Even their level of due diligence of the country itself and on both sides become much faster to get undertaken. So that becomes the quickest way to move this project forward, to get internal investors to move forward. Moving forward, what are the alternative areas of financing the projects? Because these are key projects that are really required by the grid in the shortest time possible as per our studies and our transmission master plan. Our target was to have these lines by 2027, so time is very short, time to make decisions is extremely short.
All right, that is Engineer John Mativo from KETRACO, and he's talking about the future of what needs to be done, especially now that the deal of 95.6 billion shillings has now been cancelled. He says there's a process that has to be followed. There could be some cost implication, especially refunding the environmental impact assessment funds that had been put in by the investor, and so much more. Deputy Speaker, when you look at it, he also says that one of the quickest ways of dealing with this is to get investors from the country. This looks a bit untidy because these local investors were still existent even before we went looking for Adani.
I think many countries strive and work towards making sure that sometimes these public-private partnerships can be from within the country. Mm-hmm. But I think in Kenya it's a tall order. We don't have that kind of resources. Countries like China do. Mm-hmm. That's why they have so much in excess that they are actually bringing their own private investment money from pension funds and equivalent of NSSF is what they bring in to come and invest in Kenya. I think going forward, we still have no choice. We'll still have to go into public-private partnerships. That is my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. I just think the lessons learned from what has happened now is that it's important actually to make it public, probably advertise for requests for expressions of interest from anyone, and make sure that there's some public participation and explaining to people that we need to fund the following projects, and explain to Kenyans our transmission lines are coming to end of term, which means we could end up with no electricity like South Africa. And so, you know, we explain that. So I think public participation, explaining to the public, explaining which projects need to be funded, and then making sure you publicize and open up the ability for everyone to apply. Mm-hmm. And then as you're going through the application process, you can notify that the following companies have advertised. Let Kenyans be able to be sensitized about it. I think that's the way to go. I think that's the lessons that we have learned from what has happened now.
Okay, Honorable Mbui, so where do you go from here? Because like Engineer Mativo there says, we need it. We need these projects. There's not been any doubt or dispute on the matter of the fact that we require this infrastructure for KETRACO improved, mm-hmm. and also our airport. You remember there was a green something program even that was initiated at the times of when Uhuru was president. So this is things that we know we need to do. The problem we have was with the manner in which it was being done. It was not transparent. And our constitution is very clear under the values and principles that the president came to address the House on values and principles under Article 10 of the Constitution. That transparency is one of those things that are, clearly, enumerated, and also, of course, accountability. So I think our problem was that it was being shrouded in secrecy. We have no problem with public-private partnerships because even our expressway, which is one of beautiful piece of infrastructure, it is under that kind of arrangement. But Kenyans are comfortable using it and paying for it. So we don't have a problem with the end product. What we have a problem with is the process that was was being followed. So if it is exposed to Kenyans and any investor out there to come and do the same job, but we know how much it's costing, how they've been identified, we will have absolutely no problem, because that's one of the ways by which it's in law that we can actually develop the country in that manner.
But when you keep hearing that there are challenges, local investors may not have such kind of money, what then can we do so that also you're not repatriating all the profits out of the country? No,
at the end of the day, what matters is a kind of deal that you strike. If someone invests and they have to get their due, they have to get value for their money. The return on investment has to be fair. But you see some of the deals that are being struck, and then you look at the period of time. I mean, you're talking about 30 years.
Yep.
And if you do your simple mathematics, you can see maybe this person can recover their investment in 10. So the rest of the period, they'll be actually just, living off our hard-earned money. So I think those are some of the things, because we've got economists and people who can sit and speculate and do the calculations and tell us what kind of money is supposed to be generated. The airport, for example, it's not a difficult thing to calculate. You can be able to figure out how much you'll be able to make in a year. So how many years do we require to recover this money? But when things are being done under the table by the minister, a few people, you've called even, I remember you called the minister to the studio here. They can't give you clear answers and straightforward answers because there's some things that are hidden. So we just want everything put on the table so we can be able to develop the country together.
Let's listen to voices of Oko Uchumi. They are talking about action being taken against people that could have been involved in bringing Adani here.
To resign, we call on the president, like he did in June, July, to dismiss those who hold executive offices and powers. And again, if this does not happen, for Parliament to commence impeachment proceedings against especially cabinet secretaries who steered the process of contracting the Adani deals.
The president did indicate that those agreements be withdrawn and alternative options be pursued. We would also like, as a Kenyan people, to know what are these alternative options, what do they cost, what are the implications, because the Kenyan people underwrite the public-private partnerships. In the event that they do not perform, the Kenyan people will still have to pay. The government of the day still has to pay.
So, Deputy Speaker, do you believe action needs to be taken against people that were involved in the procurement process, but is there even a reason enough for investigations?
No, I think that one you also have to ask yourself. In law, there's something called the doctrine of ripeness. Is a matter ripe for prosecution? Was there an agreement done? Did anything go wrong? Did government lose any money? And also the Procurement Act talks about if you are acting in good faith, then it's not and even if you make a mistake, it's not a basis for prosecution. So I think what's important, that those are very, very sweeping statements. They are referring to an agreement. Yeah, but is there an agreement?
There was one for Ketrako, wasn't there?
Sorry? No, I'm saying, I don't think like most people. I think I'm a lawyer, so I think of it in a way that if you ask me something, I just won't speculate and tell you, I think we should do this. I'll say, I would look at the facts. Is there an agreement? At what stage had the agreement done? Was it within the procurement law? Sorry, I'm saying, I do not know that for a fact. Yes, they're talking about that there was an agreement. I haven't seen an agreement. If I saw that agreement, if you give me a copy of that agreement and see where it has reached, what expenses were incurred by government, and how far government was exposed, I would give you a very clear legal opinion as to whether someone should be charged or not. But I can't just say it as a sweeping statement.
No, that's okay to comment as a lawyer, but when the president is cancelling the procurement process, but also...
Procurement process is the start. It's a negotiation.
Let me just finish. It was a procurement process for the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport expansion project. But for Ketrako, a deal had been signed and even announced by the minister, Opiyo Wandayi, who even appeared before Parliament on that particular day and said that he does not think that the events in the US are going to affect this particular one, affecting the energy sector.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I would only comment on things that are facts within my knowledge.
Because the essence of this question, Deputy Speaker, is time has been spent. Kenyans have been engaged. to the point of signing a program. Even if you don't lose money because it's a PPP arrangement, you have lost time and money invested by officials looking at those documents.
The operative word here is procurement process. Procuring is a process. Decision-making is a process. Do you know that half the time when you sit in public office, which I've sat in, is that you're negotiating things. You may find that only 30% of them are the ones that actually go to full conclusion. So that is part of the job. Because you can't just make the decision on a snap minute. This is required. It's like when someone is even during the procurement process, you'll find that there'll be an expression of interest. Then after the expression of interest, there'll be a feasibility study that will be done. There will be, environmental impact assessment that will be done. It will go back and ask for somebody setting out specifications, spending a lot of time and money to be able to come and present this. So it's a back and forth. That is why I'm saying the operative word is procurement process. Okay. It's a negotiation process, if you put it simply. So there is so many checks before you get to it. Sometimes you spend the entire year negotiating a procurement. Before you actually implement it.
Mheshimiwa Mbui, is there any point in asking for accountability on officers or officials that were involved in that process that would appear to be what it is? Remember, there had been several questions asked about the Adani deal, and actually I think there was a matter before court. Is there a point?
Yeah, definitely, because, like you said, there's a lot of time wasted. I'm listening to the Deputy Speaker. Unfortunately, she also seems not to trust the executive, because the CS did tell us that, and I'll tell you two things that the CS have said. The CS for Energy said the deal was done and that they've settled on a person. So that means, to me, if I have to believe him, that it means that they had already gone into an agreement. And so therefore, when she says that there was no agreement, then I'm wondering, who do I believe between her and the executive? I'm also suspicious of the Kenyan executive currently. But the CS did tell us there was a deal. Secondly, the Honorable CS for the Treasury did indicate to Kenyans that, we cannot cancel Adani deals, if you remember, because then Kenya stands to lose heavily. That was what he said when he came before a parliamentary committee. Now, the story changed immediately when the president said that he's cancelling, and he says he doesn't think that we'll lose anything. So I'm beginning to wonder who's telling us the truth here. In fact, now, for me, Sam, I'm just going to depend on the church, because they are the only ones who seem to be telling us what we need to know.
You just want to specify which church.
All churches.
And I think, Sam, you know me, I've been coming to this station for many years.
Yes.
I have never speculated. I only speak to facts that are within my knowledge. If it's not within my knowledge, I'm humbled enough to admit to you that I do not have those facts.
Which is fine. I mean, I have no problem with your answer, Deputy Speaker. And Geoffrey Ruku, Member of Parliament for Mbeere North constituency, is now with us in studio. How are you?
I'm good, Sam.
What happened?
Sorry for...
We've waited for you. It's been... Should I count the time? No.
I'm sorry for coming very late.
I know him. He's never late.
Yeah.
He's one of the people who are fast in Parliament all the time. So something else must have happened.
Okay. Yes. All right. I want us to listen to what CS John Mbadi is said in relation to this as we conclude on the matter.
I think what Raila said is Adani has done some projects in some places and can be seen, like in Mumbai, they have done an airport, an excellent airport. Whether they corrupted, that one we cannot know. Kwani sisi tunaishi India, nijue amebribe watu huko kujenga airport. There is no contradiction between Raila and William Ruto. There is no contradiction between Opiyo Wandayi, and we are all in government. By the way, the moment President Ruto speaks, Mbadi has spoken.
Okay, that's interesting. And Mheshimiwa Ruku, you see, it is okay to speak, but eventually Kenyans want value for their money because Kenyans pay taxes to facilitate public officers to be in office, to do a good job, diligently so, to follow the law in the procurement process. A lot of questions had been asked about Adani, but it appears all that was ignored up until there's that matter that was appearing in the US. What do you make of this?
Sam, I think the issue of Adani is now past. Why should we dwell in the past? I think we should look into the future.
And what does that future look like for you?
Of course, the future is looking very promising. The government or president is putting its best foot forward in all matters of government or in all matters of affecting the people of the Republic of Kenya. The issues of Adani is the past. They have been settled. There will be nothing constructed or given to the Adani group. We should move forward and try to articulate on the issues which government is trying to tackle or the people of the Republic of Kenya are facing on a day-to-day basis. I know there are many sectors which are not...
What are those lessons that we must pick, Mheshimiwa Ruku?
Always it's very important to do proper due diligence. Due diligence is important to carry out in-depth due diligence, especially when we are dealing with our international friends or partners, because many issues can come up. We have seen the issues which have come up. They have been dealt with, family, and in most appropriate way. I think now is for us to ask ourselves, how are we going to expand JKIA, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport? How are we going to ensure the power in the Republic of Kenya comes down, the cost of power comes down? And I think either way,
what are your suggestions?
We need a proper international airport. And my suggestion is the way Nairobi City is growing, we need to move Nairobi City outwards. We need to see that express highway goes all the way to Machakos Junction, probably, and or even beyond Machakos Junction. Konza City is one of the major infrastructure which has been put in place by successful administration, by Uhuru Kenyatta administration. William Ruto is still working on it. It is an idea which was conceived by Mwai Kibaki government. So we need to see some. Yeah. If we can have an international airport somewhere in Konza, around that area, it will help us in expanding this city. A mega international airport. We can close down this Wilson Airport and take it to JKA, where international flight and local or domestic flight can be carried out from JKA. But this country needs a mega international airport.
When did you realize this?
I've been I have many ideas, some day-to-day ideas. Remember, I am not in executive. I'm a legislature, I'm in National Assembly. So
when did you realize
I may say that even in the top of the mountain, but I'm not the implementer.
Did you say that before Adani was cancelled?
Of course, I've been saying it.
To who?
I'm saying it to some.
Come on, this is after the cancellation. I'm asking before the cancellation.
I'm saying to some. I'm saying to Mbowe.
You haven't.
I'm discussing it with friends. I mean,
no. On a serious note,
is it my responsibility to come up with privately initiated proposals and take them to?
Of course, it's not your responsibility.
Yes.
But you occupy an office that not many Kenyans have the privilege to.
Yes.
Like she says, about oversighting, but also representation.
Yes.
Have you spoken to this matter before the House?
This is just an idea. I have not spoken in the House. Probably I will need to formally table something like that on the floor of the House. I don't know, as a special motion, maybe we deliberate it as members of Parliament. But I think we need mega international. International airports are prime real estate. A lot of money can come to the country out of an international airport.
And who should do it?
Many of the West Africa flights, they connect from here. And look at our airport.
Who should build that international airport you're talking about?
It should be built by Kenyans. I think not the Kenyans who are complaining about the Adani deal. It's Kenyans. So let us discuss, all of us. Probably it's not the best idea. Probably there are many other good ideas out there. And we go with the best idea, some. I'm not saying that we have to take the international airport all the way to Konsa. Probably someone else.
That's what you said.
That's
you can go against what you said.
I'm just putting an idea out there. Maybe Boy has a proper idea, better than my idea. Okay. And of course, a better idea gives an idea which is not the best gives way to a better idea.
You know, Sam, if you remember...
I think, Sam, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
One thing that is not in doubt is that we need to improve our airport, period. First of all, Kenyans should be ashamed. Our airport is made of canvas. Remember, after the airport burnt, the canvas is built on the runway. You know, it's on tarmac, eh? So it's in a pathetic state. If we want to be the leaders in Eastern Central Africa like we boast we are, we must do something. And we are saying we do not have the resources to build that airport. The only way we can raise resources, like we said, it's taxes, borrowing, or PPPs. That's the only way. And it's clear that taxes is not an option. Borrowing further is not an option. So the public-private partnerships, which is what used the world over, is the only way to go. You just need to go and see what Ethiopia has done with the public-private partnerships. Ethiopia has overtaken us by tenfold. Rwanda has done the same thing. It is the only way that we can move forward. So that's been in agreement.
Is it really the only way? Because at a cost of 260 billion shillings, and this is an investment that will be put, was to be put by Adani, and they would be there for a whole 30 years. You're telling me you cannot find 260 billion shillings in 5 years?
Okay, why don't you tell me a few ideas where to get it?
No, I'm asking you because, 260 divided by 5 years is 52 billion shillings. We cannot find 52 billion shillings in our finances.
Yes. Yeah, remember...
Some 250 billion is a serious amount of money for this economy.
Allow her to finish.
Yeah, we were part of this conversation. We sit in Parliament. Where there is discussions, you're literally, if the other day we were having conversations on not being able to pay NHIF debts of 5 billion, so that's what I'm saying. I think we need to educate Kenyans on how tight...
The NHIF debt is out of mismanaged resources. It's not a problem that Kenyans created.
That's okay, but I'm just saying we have acknowledged, this current government has acknowledged there's a debt. Whether it was because of mismanagement or whether it's not the issue. The issue is we have a debt. And there's been a struggle. They paid 1.5 billion before, then they're paying 3.5 billion this week, and so on. So when you talk about we can't find 52 billion, we can't even pay for medical, which is urgent. So it tells you, what I'm just trying to tell you...
Let me ask you again, we cannot find 260 billion shillings in 5 years from the Kenyan economy?
Yes.
Even from the banks that we have in the country, they cannot finance that?
When the banks find, if you do domestic borrowing, which is one of the biggest problems, is that the interest rates are extremely high. But also it has an impact on the economy because it means the small, medium enterprises cannot borrow from the local banks because government is borrowing. So governments, as good economic sense, try not to borrow domestic. What we do is we borrow concessionary loans that are 1% and are usually long-term. That's why we borrow from international financial institutions. You guys need to go to economic school.
Our domestic liabilities, are so tight that there is no margin for the government, this government, or even the next government, to play with that. It is at the maximum. If we go beyond what the local liabilities are at the moment, then, as the Deputy Speaker is saying, the interest rate, bank interest rates,
is extremely high. And furthermore, I think also what is very important is that at the moment, Kenya is walking a very tightrope, and I think the President has admitted to this severally, walking a very tightrope to make sure that we do not default on our loans. Niger, I think, defaulted. Which other country? Ethiopia defaulted. Ghana defaulted. Kenya did not default. So we should be telling ourselves, as Kenya, we should be thanking God that we did not default. Because the moment you default as a country, you stop getting any concessionary loans, which means you have to borrow very expensive loans, and you'll be in debt for posterity.
Okay.
So I think that's the knowledge that Kenyans need to be explained to.
All right.
Some, if you allow me, because, I listened to Honor Boruku when he came, and he kept beating around the bush, and, even talked about putting up an airport at Konza City. These are conversations we've been having about Adani. What part of the deal that Adani had was that there would be no other airport built within 150 kilometers. That means it was even already knocking out the possibility of the Konza City. And we're even wondering what is going to happen to Wilson Airport. So that's why we are saying this is just a matter of transparency. And finally, of course, Sam, you notice that whenever we are doing any infrastructure in Kenya, the cost of the infrastructure in Kenya is always so much higher than all our partner states within the region. Why is that? And that's why we are saying that if you make things transparent in advance, then we can be able to compare. If you're doing your airport at a certain cost, what about other countries? How much more are they spending? Or how much less are they spending? I think Kenya's problem is just an issue of corruption. And that's why we are not transparent, because we want to hide some cards under the table, because that's how people make money.
Sam Mbui is a member of parliament. Adani deal is no longer there. So what do you propose?
I propose
what do you propose Kenya to do as far as airport is concerned?
I have talked about that.
Always be
I asked you a question, what you propose. You said you don't sit in the executive.
But I have proposed. I have said we have to build.
You said it's just an idea.
It's an idea.
By the way,
you may be having your idea.
I have given my proposal before he came. He came late, so he doesn't know what I said about the PPP. But I'll say this, that I also propose that they cancel the ICT health system, which is also connected to Adani. The minute you start dealing with Adani, and because they've been indicted in the US, deal with all the issues concerning Adani.
Issues of the airport.
What is the connection between?
I understand that the Adani group is through their partners within the organization are also involved in the health one.
I understand.
Yes, that I understand. Just the way I understood that Adani's deal is corrupted, and it was confirmed by the US. Eventually, these will come out in light, because there is a connection between Adani and the company that is supposed to be providing the system for health cover. And I will tell you this: even if it is not Adani, it is too expensive. 104 billion to do a system, and we all know that NHIF had proposed about 700 million shillings to improve the one they had. And we quickly ran away from that so that we can go and introduce a new one costing 104 billion. 104 billion is not pocket change, Sam. You give me 104 billion, I'm not an ICT expert. I can even go and look for Bill Gates, and you make it for me for maybe half that price. Kenyans are being taken for a ride because of, very nicely worded, opinions. But the reality is that there are certain things that are obviously too expensive. What is it you're paying for in an ICT system? It is actually just manpower. It is just manpower. It is the brains behind the system. How can it cost 104 billion?
Yet the health committee...
It raised that concern. By the way, Sam, the health committee of the Republic of Kenya did complain about the cost. And they were of the opinion that the one of NHIF be improved, because there already is an existing system that has been used to provide cover. But so they wanted that improved.
It was reported that the committee cleared it to go ahead.
Well, I can tell you that they did raise concerns. If they cleared it, then, your guess is as good as mine why that change of heart. Because what I know is that there was that issue was raised. That is a complaint that they had. But again, sometimes you must realize that Parliament operates in this way. That even if you have a committee is made up of many members. And the final decision that is made of the committee is a democratic decision. So you find that there is an opinion that might be the right decision, but the overpowering one, or the one with the numbers, is a wrong decision.
Okay.
Like I said, I always believe in accuracy.
Yep.
I know that when these things come up, I don't necessarily was said to us, but I did ask the chairperson of SHA, this Social Health Authority. The confirmation was that there is no contract between SHA and any service provider on digitization of the universal health care software yet. So that's what has been confirmed. And I think what is important when we want to ask questions like that...
between the Ministry of Health and the consortium led by Safaricom Limited. Safaricom itself has confirmed that that deal was signed and agreed at 104 billion shillings.
Then it goes on to say that the existing contract that the Social Health Authority inherited was between the defunct NHIF and service providers of a system. So for me, I go by what I am told by the person who holds the information. And I want us to do this instead of speculating here.
No, we're not speculating.
What is important, what is important is you can actually invite the chairperson of the Social Health Authority to come to this show and explain it, rather than try and get misinformation from myself and Honorable Mbui.
You know, Mheshimiwa Speaker, that letter that you're reading was also shared with the media. And it's true, there's no contract between Social Health Authority and the consortium of Safaricom. But there is a contract between the Ministry of Health and that consortium of Safaricom to provide a digital system that is going to enable institutions like SHA, KEMSA, and others to access the system to connect all hospitals across the country.
So you actually have the information. So why are you asking us the question? You should be giving me the information.
You know, Deputy Speaker, if you're following the conversation, he raised the question and said that he sees Adani in the system.
Oh, okay.
I asked him a question, where is that? What is the connection?
Yes.
But he has also raised the question about the cost itself, which has not been explained by anybody.
Yes. And that's why the lessons we have learned from what has happened so far up to now, I said this earlier. The president clearly talked about issues of corruption, and he said that must be looked into, and he pledged that he will lead from the front on that issue. We also learned lessons from what happened with the Adani deal, was also that Kenyans felt that it was shrouded in mystery and they didn't know anything about it. So lesson we have learned is that we must carry the public from the beginning to the end. And we are saying it is right for the public to question these issues. And the president clearly said that in his State of the Nation address. Right. He said that Kenya is a democratic country. Protests are within our constitution. The questioning government is within our democracy and part of our rule of law. And we shall continue to listen, and he listens to the public, and he will continue to act and allow public participation in these issues. So we've learned, these are the lessons I've learned. And that's why I said, if I were to do it, if I were in the executive, and if I were to go back, I would tell myself, I will advertise very publicly, ensure that you carry the country when you're doing the expression of interest. When you have the shortlist, inform the public that the following people have applied. When you select whichever company you pick, you will say it's because they qualified more than this other person because they had this and that and that. And then you explain why it's good for the country, how much it will cost, and what would be the alternative if you did not take this. So I think, let's agree, we now know that we must have involved the public all the steps of the way.
There's no system that can cost 1 or 4